Undercover boss gets toast, freezes when waitress reveals she goes home hungry every night. A system is only truly fair when its leader dares to step back and view it from the lowest level. Early morning, drizzle pattered softly on the metal awning, creating a subdued rhythm like the sigh of a day just beginning. The light outside filtered through a veil of rain, casting patchy gray streaks across the sidewalk. Sunrise Diner, branch number 28, opened on schedule, by the book, precisely as the reports had shown for several consecutive quarters. But today, the first person to step inside wasn't a regular. It was a tall, quiet man, wearing a faded flannel shirt and a cap pulled so low it nearly covered half his face. His hands were tucked deep in his jacket pockets, his steps calm but anything but random. Derek Langston, CEO of Sunrise Restaurant Group, the very person who had penned the first lines of the operational code book. If fairness doesn't show up in the smallest transaction, then the entire system is just a well-organized mistake. He took a seat at a small table near the window, a spot from which he could observe the entire diner without drawing attention. In front of him was a plain menu he knew by heart, but this time, he wasn't reading with the eyes of a founder. He observed like a man waiting for something that can't be found in numbers. According to compiled data, this branch maintained stable revenue, had strong customer feedback, and met all operational benchmarks. But what unsettled Derek wasn't in the charts. It was in the scattered footnotes from the HR reports. First 3-month turnover rate exceeds industry standard. Frequent internal shift, change requests without clear explanation. Work environment described as subdued, unpredictable. No one could explain why a high-performing branch couldn't retain its people. But for Derek, one sentence was enough to bring him back. It feels like you can do really well here and still be overlooked. He hadn't come for breakfast. He'd come to find out who was being overlooked and why. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. Inside, the first coffee of the day was poured, and a truth one no one had dared to name was about to be served. Some words don't need to be loud, but when the right person hears them, they can no longer pretend they didn't exist. A cup of coffee was placed gently on the table. A plate of toast followed, evenly cut, not burned, not bland. Everything just right. No mistakes, no complaints. The person bringing the tray was Maya, a young woman, petite, with slightly sunken eyes, her uniform neatly pressed but not new. There was something about the way she smiled that made one feel she had once been forced to smile far more often than necessary. "Enjoy your meal, sir," Maya said softly, placing the napkin next to the plate with a carefulness that suggested every small gesture was her only way of compensating for greater things she couldn't control. Derek nodded, observing more closely not just with his eyes, but with the intuition of someone who had seen too many good employees let go, simply because the system forgot to ask. "Are you still holding up?" he asked gently, almost like probing. "It's busy this morning. Have you had any break at all?" Maya gave a soft smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. She bowed her head, as if trying to retreat into herself, then said almost as a reflex, "I eat after the kids. I haven't had time today, but it's okay. I'm used to it." No bitterness, no complaint. It sounded like she was talking about the weather, something she no longer expected to change in her favor. Derek said nothing more, but something inside him paused. That sentence brief, fluid, should not exist in a system he had once helped design. A system that had been promoted as caring from the very first shift. A system in which he had once stated, no one should have to skip a meal just to keep their job. And yet this morning, at table number 4, an employee doing everything right still treated hunger as a normal part of the job. Derek gently set his coffee cup down, not because it was too hot, but because that sentence still lingered warmly in his palm, like a faint echo of a truth the data reports had completely missed. And in that moment he understood. He was no longer here to inspect. He was here to confront. Not every system fails because of a software bug. Sometimes it runs perfectly line by line. It's just been written to serve the wrong people. Derek sat silently at his table, like an unnamed spectator. He made no comment, took no notes, but every movement in the diner stayed within his gaze, as if every small gesture was whispering something the quarterly report had failed to capture. Maya moved constantly. Table 2 asked for an extra order. Table 4 complained about overcooked eggs. Table 7 needed a receipt urgently. She was there for all of them. Fast, precise, without a single complaint. But each time a customer pulled out their wallet, she stopped. No handling the terminal, no touching the POS. She would step slightly aside, and Ryan would step in. Crisp white shirt, leather belt, a faint scent of cologne. He didn't seem to come from anywhere. He was already standing there. As if the POS machine was his personal property, and using it was a default reward for those who knew their place. Derek frowned. Ryan, nephew of Doug, the morning shift manager here. He didn't say anything. But that afternoon, when he left the restaurant, he didn't return to the main office. He went straight to the technical headquarters where all POS system access rights were stored nationally. Using his privileged internal credentials, Derek logged into the access permissions for branch number 28. A line popped up clearly, Maya POS access denied. Note, pending reassessment of operational ability during peak hours. Proposed date, 5 months ago. Approved by Doug H. Derek opened the training records. Results showed that Maya had completed the POS training course 6 months ago with an excellent final evaluation. Why was someone fully competent with completed training still labeled pending review? Why was the only person allowed to handle transactions someone who didn't even serve tables directly? Derek opened the 30-day tip statistics report. The graph appeared like a sigh he had already braced for. Ryan D. POS handled 89% of all transactions. Average tips, highest in the entire branch. Maya H. Direct service, 57% of all tables. Digital tips received, 0. A closed loop. Ryan operated, Doug approved. Maya just worked, never acknowledged. Derek leaned gently back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. In his mind, it was no longer just a restaurant. It was a crack small, deliberate, and built from quiet nods shared between people who believed, if she can endure it, let her keep doing it. He opened his personal notebook and wrote a single line. No one should get used to hunger when they're the only ones still trying to feed the entire system. Derek sat for a while longer in front of the black screen, but in his mind, every detail from the morning still played clearly like a slow rewind. Maya's eyes when she saw someone else processing her check, the way she was always the last one to clear a table, but never allowed to reach the part where recognition was given. He opened another folder, Archived Complaints. This was a rarely accessed section, storing internal reports that had been closed before being officially addressed. Derek typed the keyword pause access, then filtered by branch number 28. There were 4 complaints. 3 were labeled voluntarily withdrawn by staff. The only managerial reply stated, misunderstanding due to lack of clarity on procedure. Staff has been reminded about inappropriate content. Doug H. Derek opened the most recent complaint. He didn't need to see the name. The tone already told him. It was Maya. I don't mean to complain. I just want to ask why, even though I've been trained and I serve most tables in the shift, I still don't get to handle the POS like the other male staff. If I've done something wrong, I'm willing to retrain, but I want to understand so I don't feel like I'm being left out. Derek read to the last line but didn't press exit. He just let the blinking cursor sit there on the white screen, a small sign of someone who once tried to type out a question no one would answer. He activated POS Action Replay, a function that monitors the operation of each transaction swipe. He randomly selected a morning shift. 8:12, table 5. Maya took the order. Maya served. Maya cleared the table. 8:39, pause transaction executed by Ryan D. Video footage from the internal camera popped up beside it. Ryan walked over from the counter, POS device already in hand. Maya stepped back, said nothing. No reaction. Just a faint smile as if she were saying to herself, I wasn't expecting anything anyway. Derek turned off the video. He leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting toward the glass wall at the far end of the office. Outside, it was still lightly raining. Each drop fell steadily, like a reminder. Exhaustion never arrives with a bang. It comes little by little, quietly, and if no one pauses to listen, it becomes the default background rhythm of every shift. Derek turned back to the computer and opened a new document. At the top, he typed, Campaign, Reset Trust, Pose Equity Initiative. The first line was written with all the clarity and shame a founder can feel. When an employee has to skip meals to avoid disrupting the tip distribution chart, the system doesn't need optimization. It needs to be recalibrated with humanity. And Derek knew tomorrow morning he wouldn't return just for coffee. He would return to begin again. Not a fist on the table, not a shouted order, just the presence of one person arriving at the right moment, bringing truth and no longer choosing silence. Friday, 7:42 a.m. Sunrise Diner, branch number 28, began its peak shift like any other day. Customers flipped through menus. The coffee machine clicked its rhythm. Staff smiled just enough. And Maya, like every day, moved non-stop between tables that hadn't ordered yet and thank yous left unsaid. Then the door opened. No announcement. No introduction. Three people in white uniforms entered, badges embroidered with the Sunrise HQ logo. Internal audit. Following them was Derek Langston. No disguise, no hat, no smile. Just a man walking in as if the whole system was holding its breath, waiting for him to ask, "Why did we let it go this far?" Duct manager froze for a moment. "Mr. Langston, No explanations needed," Derek interrupted. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to bring the entire diner to a halt. The coffee machine went silent. The customers stopped smiling. Only the gazes remained, and the truth was about to speak. One of the auditors opened a laptop, connecting to the menu display screen behind the counter. Instead of the day's specials, a clean, cold data set appeared. Maya H. Tables served. 52% of all tables over 30 days. POS transactions, 0. Ryan D. Tables served, 14%. POS transactions, 89%. Right below was an excerpt from an internal email. "Keep Maya in the serving role only. If she's allowed to operate the machine, it'll be hard to manage the tip distribution data. Ryan's better, he knows how to play along. Doug H." Then another chain of emails, this time from Ryan to Doug. "She won't say anything. Just keep it like this. I'll gather the tips and split them at the end of the week." Derek stepped forward, each step echoing on the tiled floor. "We built this system so that every effortive and silent ones would be recognized openly. But today I see a young woman who served over half the tables this month, yet hasn't been credited a single cent in digital tips." He turned to Ryan. "You operated the machine, but you never stood at the tables. You stood next to fairness, just to block it." Then turned to Doug. "And you, the one we trusted to uphold core values, turned the system into a gate that decided who gets to be seen and who doesn't." He signaled. 2 envelopes were handed over, termination letters. Effective immediately. New discussion. New soft landing. No more space for apologies. Derek turned to face the employees and the entire restaurant watching. He didn't wave slogans. He didn't chant. He simply said, "From today onward, all transactions will be displayed in real time. Whoever service operates the system, whoever operatius recognized. No more gray zones for privilege, and no more silent zones for those who were once overlooked." Oh. His eyes settled on Maya standing quietly behind the counter, still holding a tray of coffee as if afraid to set it down and lose something she had waited for far too long. Derek stepped forward, not speaking as a CEO, but as someone who once looked away and now chose to return. "Thank you for not giving up before we woke up." Maya said nothing, but for the first time, she smiled. Not to please a customer, but because now she knew she was no longer invisible in the very place she helped keep running. Derek didn't leave right away. After the envelopes had been handed out and silence still lingered in the air, he signaled for the audit team to continue. A second screen lit up this time, showing the new interface, Sunrise Rebalance, real-time tip distribution system. The display was simple. A list of staff, a column showing the name of the server, a shift-based timeline along with tips distributed in real time based on actual invoices. At the top of the list, Cassie L., order number 71, $3.25 tip, confirmed at 8:14 a.m., right after. Maya H., order number 72, $5 tip, confirmed at 8:16 a.m. A soft O slipped from one of the new hires who had joined just 2 weeks ago. For the first time, their name appeared on the screen as an undeniable truth. Derek spoke without looking at anyone in particular. "Starting today, everyone has the right to see their name in the place where their effort was given, and every customer has the right to know who actually received the tip they left behind." He stepped aside, letting everyone's eyes fall on the screen, a tool that no longer served as just a management interface, but a visible commitment written in numbers. One male employee, Ben, gently touched his name badge on his chest, then looked over at Maya as if wanting to say something, but couldn't quite bring himself to speak. Maya stood still, but this time, not from shock. She was looking at herself only appearing in the system, publicly, without needing anyone to plead for her, without needing anyone to defend her. Derek turned back, nodding slightly, as if closing a hearing that never needed a courtroom. "We can't guarantee everyone will feel fully rewarded, but we can this. No one should leave a shift hungry just because they served too quietly." No one applauded. No need, because what is right doesn't need to be celebrated. It just needs to be done clearly and decisively. Derek looked at Maya one last time. She had already set the tray down. Her eyes no longer looked away. He didn't say anything more. He just smiled gently, a smile from someone who had arrived late, but still made it in time. "I'll stay. Fairness is not a privilege. It is a habit formed when someone dares to revisit things that seemed already fine. 1 month later, Sunrise Diner, Branch 28, still opened its doors at 6 a.m., just like always. But today, the diner didn't just welcome the morning sunlight, it welcomed something else too. A new feeling lighter, more genuine, and more complete. On the wooden wall behind the counter, the new electronic board steadily with every line. Live tips verified in real time. Below it, etched directly into the wood, the one who serves is acknowledged. The quiet ones are named. The morning shift began with confidence, no more hesitation. The staff smiled more easily, not to mask exhaustion, but because they truly felt present. Maya stepped out from behind the counter, now wearing a charcoal gray uniform with orange trim. A new name tag pinned neatly over her left chest. Maya Ha, assistant manager. Her hair was neatly tied up, her steps firm. No longer the walk of someone holding herself together, but the stride of someone who's learned how to truly stand where she belongs. At the familiar corner table, Derek Langston sat alone. No laptop, no audit team, just a guest ordering the same old items, black coffee and a slice of toast. But this time, he wasn't there to take notes. He was there to remember. A system that once fell out of rhythm, now finding its pulse again. Through the hearts of those who had kept it alive, Maya brought over the coffee, set the cup down gently, looked at him, no longer timid. This morning's breakfast isn't one I skip for myself anymore. I just needed a chance, thank you for seeing that. Derek smiled. He didn't speak right away. He reached for the cup, the aroma still bold, the mug still warm. But this time, the strange sensation didn't come from the flavor. It came from the hands that poured it. A woman once excluded by the system, now quietly running it again with the kindness she never lost. He nodded. And thank you for not staying silent too long. Maya turned and walked away to resume her shift. But what she left behind was something the system had once lost. Trust and transparency. Trust that once one person is truly seen, others too won't have to suffer in the dark. Maya returned to the counter, where two new employees were still fumbling with trays of pastries and online orders. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't bark orders. She simply leaned in slightly and said softly, "You don't have to be fast yet. Just be real. The tips won't run away. The system's on your side now." A boy, about 19, Ben, nodded, a little bewildered. He had just started on Tuesday. But in his eyes now, there was no longer the unease of someone unfamiliar with the process. Instead, there was the sense that he was working somewhere that truly had a place for him. The electronic board behind the counter lit up with a new line. Order number 84, $4.75 tip. Server, Ben M. Ben looked up, blinking. His name clearly displayed on the board. For the very first time, no need to ask, no need to guess, no need to wait until the end of the shift. He turned toward Maya as if to say something, but she just smiled. New encouragement, new praise. Just a subtle nod, like someone who's walked through darkness and now quietly flips the light on for someone else. At the end of the counter, Derek remained seated. His coffee was only half finished, but he hadn't taken another sip. He was observing not with the eyes of a supervisor, but with the gaze of a man learning to trust again in a system he himself had created. Morning sunlight spilled across the table, filtering through the coffee cup, casting a shadow of small etched words along the porcelain. Every effort counts, even the unseen ones. He turned the cup slowly until the line faced him. Feeling the warmth through the ceramic, Derek knew today wasn't any different in terms of the food. But everything had changed from how the food was served to how the people who served it were named. A group of customers walked in, older folks, likely their first time visiting. Maya quickly came out to greet them and lead them to a table. On the way, one woman asked, "How do tips work around here, dear?" Maya turned without hesitation. "Transparent, public, and fair, ma'am. The name of the person who brings the food appears on the board, and every customer gets to help protect what's right." The woman smiled. "That's rare, sweetheart." Maya didn't reply. She just laid the menu down softly, a gesture as gentle as a silent thank you. Not a thank you for having a job, but a thank you for getting to do it again the right way. Fairness doesn't begin with a digital board. It begins when one person dares to speak up and another is quiet enough to truly listen. And when the system finally learns how to hear even the softest voices, no one will ever have to choose between a meal and their dignity again.